Hello, everybody. Welcome into this Monday edition of the Pack-A-Day podcast. No Victory Monday today, but we do have one small win. I actually have a backdrop. Bart Starr is now behind me, so Corey Benke and many others, you can now get off my back. It's not done yet. I still have more that I want to do to it eventually, but for the time being, at least there is something behind me, again, to take the focus off of me and give you something else to look at. But I know many of you have been on me for that, and for those of you wondering why it took so damn long, I actually ordered this a long time ago, but while I cover the Packers and do so many other things, one of my talents is certainly not decor, so making sure things are at the right angle and centered and figuring out all that crap is not my forte, so that's why it took a little bit longer than I would have liked, but it is now up, so at least there is something behind me. So again, get off my back. I have something there, but I know that's not why you are checking in today. I'm sure maybe some of you are checking in for hopefully a pleasant view on the Green Bay Packers. I know I tend to trend a little bit more optimistic. Not the case today. I think this was a incredibly disappointing game. Am I concerned over it to the point where I think this is all of a sudden a bad Packers team and that they're doomed and from here on out? No. I think it's one loss in crappy conditions, and I think they're going to be able to bounce back from this. And I like actually their chances of going into San Francisco and getting a win as well. Maybe you think me crazy in saying that, but I do think they're going to bounce back from this. But there's no two ways around it. This was a very, very, very massively disappointing loss to the Minnesota Vikings, a team that was all but waving the white flag by trading away Yannick Ngakoue already. They know they're not competing for a Super Bowl this season. Yes, they're coming off a bye, but they're going on the road in crappy conditions. They had every reason to fold out of this game, and Green Bay let them hang around. And not only that, they basically couldn't get them off the field. They scored at will through their first 4 drives, 4 touchdowns consecutively, 21 unanswered points at one point. Just a really bad game from this Packers team. And I think it's fair to question whether or not, or I guess I should say why this continues to happen, where from time to time, Green Bay just has some of these flat, lackluster performances kind of out of nowhere, whether it be the Chargers or San Francisco games from a season ago, whether it be the Tampa Bay game earlier this season and what should have been this marquee matchup, a division rivalry at home. And they've just fallen flat at times, especially on the defensive side of the football. And I know a lot of people have asked, or just maybe assumed, well, this is a Mike Pettin issue. Green Bay needs to fire Mike Pettin. Well, this is a talent issue. This is a execution issue. Frankly, it's all three. It is talent, it is execution, it is scheme. It's all of it combined into something that is a real problem at this point. And I put this game almost entirely on the Packers defense. Yes, the Packers offense stumbled in the second half. They haven't been as good when playing from behind. There's some things that they need to clean up in that aspect as well. But when you go out and you score in your first 2 drives, basically every time you touch the ball, and by the time you get the ball back in the second half, you're still down by a touchdown, and it feels like if you don't score on every drive, you're basically going to be out of the game. It puts a tremendous amount of pressure on the offense. And if they were a little bit better, they would have been able to go punch for punch with the Vikings. And I'm not saying the Packers offense was perfect in this game, but this loss was on the defense. I don't think there's any two ways about that. When you go 4 drives right up and down the field, run it right down the Packers' throat to score 28 points, that's going to be a game that's on the defense. No big plays on defense. And let me go back to a second. We want to talk about scheme. We want to talk about execution. We want to talk about is it the talent on the team? Again, nobody is absolved of blame here. Let's go talent first of all. You go back to last year, and most of you have heard me say this over and over. I said it on radio shows. I said it on the long form version of the podcast. I've said it everywhere where anyone's been willing to listen to me. People talked all year about needing wide receivers and different positions, and while they shouldn't have drafted a quarterback, all of the garbage that happened all throughout the offseason. Some of it legitimate, some of it not. I've said from day one of the offseason up until now, the biggest thing that this Packers team needed was help for Kenny Clark. I've said it, I've been consistent with it, and I still believe it to be the case up until this point. The biggest issue is along the defensive line. And if they had better help and more help along the defensive line, it would make everything easier throughout the defense. We talk about what Kenny Clark does to the defense, making things easier on the linebackers, making things easier on the edge rushers because he's collapsing pockets, and that makes things easier on the corners and the safeties. He needs help. And he needs to play better. I'll get to that more in just a minute as well. But he needs help alongside of him. He needs another playmaker, somebody who can stuff the run, something. Because right now, Montravius Adams and Kingsley Keke and Tyler Lancaster and Dean Lowry and Billy Wynn and Willington Prevalon and anyone else they want to bring up from the practice squad is not it. It's not enough. And it will be the Achilles heel of this team. And it will ultimately be what causes this team an exit at some point in the playoffs if it doesn't get fixed. Now, they can fix this in a couple ways. They could go out and make a trade. They could maybe bring in a player like a Timmy Jernigan. Maybe Brandon Meebane's willing to play, something like that. Maybe they, again, find a diamond in the rough somewhere. Hell, maybe Willington Prevalon comes in and, crushes it out of nowhere. Maybe they just get better. I don't know what. But something has to give along that defensive line because right now they are not up to the task. And the massive amount of snaps that we've seen from Lancaster and Lowry and Adams, we know what we're going to get there. And it's not good enough. So you want to start with talent? You can start right there. How about execution? First of all, the top three players on this defense, Kenny Clark, Preston Smith, and Zadarius Smith, are not as good as they were a season ago. I'm not breaking news here. You know this. Maybe you haven't admitted it yet, but you know this to be true. The top three players and the front seven of that defense are nowhere near playing at the level they were a season ago. Zadarius maybe not too far off. He still makes some plays here and there, but he was maybe the best player in defense last year. And I'm not sure he's a Pro Bowler right now. Preston Smith was a top 100 player ranked by the players? He looks like a bottom 100 player. He doesn't look anything close to what he looked like a season ago. His impactful plays are maybe one a game at best right now. Kenny Clark not making anywhere near the level of impact plays, and he might be beat up a little bit. Maybe all three guys are beat up a little bit. I'm not saying that maybe there aren't extenuating circumstances, but I can tell you for a fact without any doubt that they are nowhere near, those three are nowhere near as good as they were a season ago. How about players stepping up? Nobody that I mentioned along the defensive line is stepping up. Kingsley Keke has shown flashes here and there. Montravius Adams has even shown some flashes here and there, but nobody of being a three-down defender along the defensive line. Christian Kirksey was not it before going down. I really like what I see out of Kamal Martin and Chris Barnes, but they have a ways to go. They ran themselves out of some plays. They didn't have perfect gap control throughout this game. And as rookie 5th round pick and rookie undrafted free agent, you're going to have some hiccups from time to time. Do I like both? Yes. Do I think they can be the long-term answer? I do, but it's going to take a little bit of time. So they need help. The players aren't playing up to what they were last year, a lot of them. Guys haven't stepped up. The execution's not there. How many missed tackles were there again this week? That's a problem. It continues to be a problem. So you can easily talk about the players that are there, and they just need to play better because the talent is there. We've seen it out of Kenny. We've seen it out of Zadarius. We've seen it out of Preston. We've seen flashes from Kingsley Keke. We've seen flashes from those inside linebackers, but right now it's not up to par. No, I don't care who the defensive coordinator is. It's nothing to do with Mike Patton in that regards. Those guys need to play better. Defensive coordinator, feel free to question all of it because ultimately it rolls up to him. He played a lot more base defense and guys didn't get the job done, but at the same time, a ton of off coverage again. You had to go into this game knowing Dalvin Cook had to be the player that was going to be not going to beat you. Dalvin Cook had over 2/3 of their yards and all 4 touchdowns. We bashed and trashed the Houston Texans for having no answer for Devontae Adams, and Green Bay has no answer for Dalvin Cook. You had to let anyone else beat you, especially in windy conditions, and you couldn't do it. And then, by the way, when Kirk Cousins did have to pass, soft off zone, soft off coverage with no bump and run, not making Kirk Cousins beat you down the field. He completed 11 passes. All of them were 10 yards or less. Most of them at or, behind the line of scrimmage. And again, it was soft off coverage on most of the plays and not coming up and bumping and challenging the wide receivers. Make Kirk Cousins beat you down the field. Green Bay didn't. And they paid for it. So question the talent, question the players, question the defensive coordinator, because right now, all of it is fair game to question. And unless it gets better, this team is going to have a fatal flaw that will come back and haunt them at some point if and when they do make the playoffs, which they will, and they'll get in, and they're a good football team, but they have a flaw, and it has to be addressed. The other thing that I wanted to go over today, a lot of people calling out the weather conditions and the penalties in this game. Those are excuses. Listen, the weather conditions, yeah, it sucked, and it made this a more palatable game for the Minnesota Vikings because it brings the gap between Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins closer because it's not going to be a huge passing game, and it makes the Vikings' lack of pass rush less important. It kind of puts the teams a little bit more on an even playing field, and to be frank, it gives a little bit of an advantage to the Vikings because Dalvin Cook is better than Jamal Williams with the injury to Aaron Jones and with David Bakhtiari not playing in this game. Everything even the field. But you know what? This is Green Bay, Wisconsin. If you're not ready as a team to play in weather conditions, this should be your home field advantage. You have to build your team so that they're ready to play in crappy conditions. You play in Green Bay 8 games of the year, in Chicago in another. 9 of your 16 games have the opportunity to be played in fairly crappy conditions. And you know you're going to play in a bunch of those in November, December, and January. So you better be ready for those type of games. And Green Bay wasn't today, and they paid the price with a loss. Minnesota outplayed them in crappy conditions. And yes, the penalties didn't go their way. It didn't matter. The Minnesota was the better team, and the better team won this game today. Period. End of story. I'll end on a positive note. I thought it was a really solid game from the tight ends. Robert Tonyan getting deep downfield again. Jay Sternberger had a couple really big catches, including a key third down conversion. Would have had a bigger play had Rodgers not missed Jay Sternberger on a nice play down the field. Completely missed him on that play. And then you have to wonder just how much Robert Tonyan would be talked about right now if Aaron Rodgers hit him in stride last week, which would have maybe went for a touchdown or at least for even a bigger game than what it did. And if he hit him in stride this week, it for sure would have went for a touchdown. I'm not calling out Rodgers this week because in windy conditions, I get it. But I do think that the tight end, specifically Robert Tonyan, as well as Jay Sternberger, really showed out in this game and gave some promise of something to look forward to moving forward, potentially having two weapons that you can use as receiving threats down the field. That was one of my positive takeaways that I'll end with today. Disappointing performance. No two ways about it. I'll be back here tomorrow, hopefully discussing my grades from the defense, assuming the game tape gets in on time. But either way, I'll definitely have something to discuss for you. So make sure to subscribe if you haven't already and check back here for an all-new Pack-A-Day podcast tomorrow. You can also get me. I recorded alone today for the Pack-A-Day podcast. Ben Fennell wasn't feeling the best, so just me flying solo. So if you want a little bit more from me, go out and get the long-form version of the Pack-A-Day podcast wherever you get your favorite podcasts. But until next time, and as always, and especially after a loss, because we always carry the G, go Pack Go.